Welcome back! As we continue exploring how modernist literature commented on society, we'll be reading a short story. Now, you've probably seen a plot arc before. Traditional stories begin with an exposition, rise to a dramatic climax, then resolve the conflict by the end. But consider modernist writers. What do you think they did with this tidy structure? Yeah, they broke all those rules. In this story, a woman is sitting at home and notices some kind of marking on the wall. But she doesn't want to get up and see what it is. So instead she thinks about it, then thinks about it, then thinks about it. No rising action, no climax, just thinking. So why would someone write a story like that? And is it any good? That's today's mission, to evaluate how modernist writers tried to capture the human experience. Now let's start reading this story and thinking about it. Then thinking about it. Then thinking about it. Life is not as organized as most stories. Our lives don't follow carefully ordered plots, and all our conflicts don't get neatly resolved. Modernist authors saw that as a challenge. They tried to capture the messy, shifting truth of everyday life in words. As we read, we'll think about that goal. Can literature really capture the way we experience life? But before we jump into the story, let's consider the author. Virginia Woolf spent most of her life challenging old ideas about society, gender, and how stories should be told. Woolf believed most literature didn't show real life because it focused on external events. She thought real life mostly happens in our minds, our shifting thoughts, random memories, and sudden feelings. So instead of big adventures, she wrote stories that followed how people actually think. That's exactly what she's doing in The Mark on the Wall. It's a story where almost nothing happens externally, but a lot happens inside the narrator's mind. Let's see what that's like. As you listen to this passage, think. What do you notice about the writing style? The narrator is sitting at home. She notices a mark on the wall and wonders where it came from. How readily our thoughts swarm upon a new object, lifting it a little way as ants carry a blade of straw so feverishly, and then leave it. If that mark was made by a nail, it can't have been for a picture. It must have been for a miniature. The miniature of a lady with white powdered curls, powder-dusted cheeks, and lips like red carnations. A fraud, of course, for the people who had this house before us would have chosen pictures in that way. An old picture for an old room. That is the sort of people they were, very interesting people, and I think of them so often in such queer places because one will never see them again. Never know what happened next. Pause to finish recording your thoughts. The first sentence talks about how easily we get distracted, and then the narrator immediately does just that. She wonders if the mark is from a nail, imagines a picture, thinks about the people who lived there before, and so on. The writing style echoes those wandering thoughts. Instead of tidy sentences, we get run-ons, fragments, ellipses, and dashes that show ideas trailing off or interrupting each other. This is called stream of consciousness, a narrative technique that aims to represent thoughts and feelings as they actually occur, often in a loose, flowing style. Modernist writers used this technique to show life the way it really feels. Our thoughts don't always come in full sentences or neat stories, so they created a writing style that reflects how people actually think. Let's see how Woolf uses this style to explore some big ideas, like how we see reality, how we understand ourselves, and what role writing plays in all of it. As you listen to this next excerpt, think. What is the narrator saying about how people experience the world and what writers should focus on? As we face each other in omnibuses and underground railways, we're looking into the mirror. That accounts for the expression in our vague and almost glassy eyes. And the novelist in future will realize more and more the importance of these reflections. For of course, there is not one reflection, but an almost infinite number. Those are the depths they will explore. Those are the phantoms they will pursue, leaving the description of reality more and more out of their stories, taking a knowledge of it for granted. Pause to reflect. Woolf suggests that modern life feels unclear and disconnected. Using a metaphor about reflections, she explores the idea that people experience the world through personal perspectives, not external facts. She predicts that future writers will focus more on inner thoughts than on objective reality. How does she feel about that? It's ambiguous. She's disillusioned with modern life, but that also opens up the opportunities to question what's real and important. Let's look at one more passage that explores those ideas around fragmentation and disillusionment. What does the author realize about reality, and how does that make her feel? The rule for tablecloths at that particular period was that they should be made of tapestry with little yellow compartments marked upon them, such as you may see in photographs of the carpets in the corridors of the royal palaces. Tablecloths of a different kind were not real tablecloths. How shocking, and yet how wonderful it was to discover that these real things, Sunday luncheons, Sunday walks, country houses, and tablecloths were not entirely real, were indeed half phantoms, and the damnation which visited the disbeliever in them was only a sense of illegitimate freedom. Pause to reflect. She starts by listing things a proper British lady was supposed to care about, like fancy tablecloths, Sunday lunches, and big country houses. But then she starts to question it all. Why do these things matter? Who decided they were important? She realizes that society doesn't just shape how people act, it even shapes what we consider real. Like, tablecloths are real, but the importance of them is something people made up. And that's freeing to realize. If those rules were made up, she can break them. She can choose a different way to live. By becoming disillusioned with society, the narrator finds new freedom. The whole story is very meta. Woolf's narrator is thinking about how traditional structures are breaking down in a story that is itself ignoring traditional structures and breaking down into a stream of consciousness. We know she's trying to show what it actually feels like to be alive. Wandering thoughts, unfinished ideas, random details that turn into deep questions. But did she succeed? Think about your opinion of Woolf's style so far. In what ways does she capture the human experience, and in what ways does she miss the mark? Pause to evaluate. Woolf has a very distinctive approach. It resonates with some readers and less so with others. As you read the whole story, keep developing those opinions. Think about what Woolf is doing and how effective it is. You might even think about what you would do differently. And will the narrator ever figure out what the mark on her wall is? Read on to find out. Hey!